You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity. Provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVol, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CFI options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVol Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again for the Crypto Rundown, the program here on the old network where we go beyond the traditional world of your Apples and your SPYs and your VIX options and look a little bit beyond, see what's going on out there in the world of crypto. Going to talk about the spot, the futures, the options, the volume, the volatility, the skew, the unusual activity, and a whole bunch more. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting, at least we think so, Options Insider Radio Network. If I sound a little bit under the weather, I'm a little bit jet lag. First flight in over a year recently, and got a little bit delayed. Got in pretty late last night, but we're soldiering on here with the show. And that means it is time, listeners, to roll out the crypto hot seat.
Forget about cold storage. It's time to turn up the heat on thought leaders from the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time to take their place on the Crypto Hot Seat.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Crypto Hot Seat, the portion of the show where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of crypto and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. And next up, we have a twofer. Two folks squeezing into the hot seat, so hopefully there's enough room for both. And both of them newcomers to the network. We have Giles COLWELL. He's the head of institutional sales over there at BLOCKFI. He's also joined by Rob Margolis, the head of crypto native sales over there at BLOCKFI. Gentlemen, welcome to the Crypto Rundown program.
Hey, Mark. Nice to be on the show, and thanks for having us.
All right, gentlemen, since neither of you have been on, let's start off, as we are wont to do with all of our first-timers here. Explain to our audience a little bit of your background in the financial space and, indeed, how it pertains to crypto, and then, B, what the heck it is you do day-to-day over there at BLOCKFI. Maybe, Giles, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. So look, just to give you a sort of high-level background from me, I just spent the last 30 years on Wall Street. I spent about 10 years at UBS, 10 years at JP Morgan, and I just finished 11 years with Bank of America. And my career basically sort of drops into sort of two areas. Firstly, I spent a large part of my career in fixed income sales covering institutional asset managers, trading various asset classes across the globe. And my focus there was very much to provide sort of one-stop for a lot of clients who wanted to access all the different asset classes or articulate kind of a view. A lot of macro funds, a lot of sort of traditional asset managers, household names that you would have heard of that manage sort of 40x money, for example. Along with some of the more sort of sophisticated, what I would call sort of financial sponsors who've kind of stepped into the market. So traditional private equity firms who have locked up capital and are beginning to deploy it outside of the traditional channels like private equity, for example. So I've covered those clients from the fixed income side, and then I moved into FIG banking at JP Morgan, where we covered a lot of the large institutional kind of hedge funds who are either going public or selling minority stakes, or raising permanent capital vehicles like BDCs and SPACs and REITs, for example. So I did that up until kind of the crisis, and then I moved into more of a sort of relationship management role, where I focused on a handful of the largest accounts across global markets, corporate banking, commercial banking, treasury services, traditional investment banking, which would include sort of debt capital markets, equity capital markets, along with sort of M&A, which we've seen obviously more of over the last few years. So I'll just kind of stop there. That's kind of my background, and pass it over to Rob.
All right, Mr. Rob, same question for you, sir. Give us a little bit of an overview of your background in the financial and indeed derivative space and what it is you do over there at BLOCKFI.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show. So my background, similar to Giles, started in traditional finance. I did equity derivative structuring at Goldman for a number of years and then jumped over into fixed income trading, caught the crypto bug in 2017 and joined LedgerX, the first CFTC-approved exchange for physically settled options on Bitcoin. Headed up institutional sales there for about 2 years before coming over to BLOCKFI to lead our crypto native business. So I cover all of our crypto clients here who are solely focused on digital assets, whether it's hedge funds, prop trading firms, corporates. So think like big exchanges, family offices, foundations, the likes. And yeah, look, excited to be on the show here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, it should be fun. I was just looking over before the show. It's been a while since we've checked in with you guys over there at BLOCKFI. The last time you were on was your CEO, Zach Prince, back on January 13th of 2020. Oh, what an innocent time it was. But a lot has happened, obviously, since then. Maybe before we even get into all the evolution, let's just really quick. We've obviously had just a massive surge of new listeners to the program since that last appearance in January 2020. So maybe let's start there. Quick refresher. What the heck is it that you guys do over there at BLOCKFI?
Sure. And it's let me just sort of take a first crack at that, and then I'll pass it over to Rob. He's been at BLOCKFI. This is I've just joined BLOCKFI, as I mentioned, and Rob's been with us for quite some time, so he can talk about certainly the last year better than I can. But one thing I will say to you, which I think is kind of interesting, if you go back to sort of January 2020, and just everybody I'm sure that listens to your show is kind of well aware of this. But if you look at sort of like the total, crypto market cap back then, we were sort of like sub 500, in terms of the size of the actual market. So obviously, a tremendous run up in the market, that everybody's well and truly aware of. With digital assets, having a market capitalization as well in excess of sort of 1.4 trillion. Even today, with prices where they've moved to today from the peak. But I think if you look at this sort of tremendous sort of run up in the market, and we've seen a similar thing happen on the trading volume side. But we have over 11,000 sort of digital assets out there in the market at the moment, which can be traded. We've got, one in excess of sort of 400 to 500 kind of trading venues. And, this was a big sort of reason why, I wanted to sort of move into the digital asset market, over the last year. It's just simply we sort of got to that point where there was enough capital being raised. The level of complexity in the market had sort of got to that point where there were just enough players that you had this sort of self-sustaining kind of ecosystem. And companies like us have been very successful in raising capital, and our peers and colleagues and friends across the industry have been very successful at raising capital. And so all the different business models that are out there, whether it's trading, whether it's the safety and soundness and the custody of digital assets, or I would say what our DNA has been, although we've moved into things like trading, but our DNA is very much on the lending side. And when Zach started this business, it was about him being able to use his digital assets as collateral to get a loan. And that sort of ecosystem around lending against assets on the digital side certainly wasn't available in traditional banking. And so that was really the sort of genesis of this business. And it's continued to this day, frankly. I think if you look at the DNA of our firm, it's this very sort of disciplined, kind of prudent approach to lending. And we do this for our retail clients. We do it for our institutional clients. And it's something that we're very proud of. We do very well. And we certainly dominate in this space. So that's kind of where we started. And so if you look at our sort of business today, it sort of falls in I would call it three categories. One being our lending business, and that could be against digital assets. It could be in the mining space. But it's very much within the DNA of our firm. The second piece I would say is our trading business. And this is where we think we really differentiate ourselves. We have an Asian trading desk. We have obviously a trading desk in New York, and we offer real 24/7 follow the sun coverage for investors who are looking for practical advice and color on kind of what is happening across the landscape. So that's certainly our focus. I'm going to pass it over to Rob here. He's done an awful lot of work with as you mentioned, with crypto native players, but along with that, certainly on the mining side as well. I'm sure everybody's aware that listens to your show. There's an awful lot going on in the mining space. So just on that note, I'll pass it over to Rob.
That's actually a great point, Giles. On Zach's last appearance back in January, I do believe Bitcoin was around 8,000, just to give you some frame of reference for how far we've come in that time, listeners. Now it can almost move that in a day. So a little bit different frame of reference we're in now than it was back, a year and a half ago. So Rob, obviously a lot has happened in the world of crypto since that appearance, and particularly just in the last, 7 or so months, really. Here now, looking at 2021, we've seen just crypto explode to just insane new levels. So walk our listeners through that a little bit. What's it been like over there on the BLOCKFI platform? Lending, of course, the last time Zach was on, he was all excited. You were about to kick off the trading side as well. That was kind of a new initiative for you. Obviously, that was a great area to be in over the course of the last year and change. So catch our listeners up on all those various initiatives, how they've unfolded over the course of the past year and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, the amount that it's grown over the past years is a little bit mind-boggling. When I joined back in March of 2020, we had about 80 employees, and we were still largely looked at as a retail offering. And it exploded to where we're now, the largest, on any given day, we're the largest provider of credit into the digital asset space. And as Giles said, that initially took the form of financing to our institutional counterparties, whether it's large traditional hedge funds or asset managers or crypto-focused firms. And we've grown that into this full suite trading offering as well, and being able to package those two together where we're able to offer fantastic financing terms along with trading makes it a very competitive offering. We've continued to expand that as well, and taking that expertise and leveraging the large balance sheet that we've accumulated from the consumer side of our business, being able to expand that into other areas. One of them being, as Giles mentioned, and I think is generally very interesting right now, is the equipment financing space. You know, there's been this big explosion with a lot of the news coming out of China with them shutting down some of the mining operations out there, and people looking to move their machines onshore, finding, you know, clean energy, stable regulation, building out large scale sites at very cheap and attractive costs, and people are looking to finance that. So it's just been another area of growth for BLOCKFI over the past year. It's been an absolutely incredible ride seeing how much this firm has grown and expanded in the institutional space.
And obviously, I mentioned on the trading side as well, that's kind of grown up and become a new development for you folks since your last appearance. But what are you seeing on the trading side? Is it still predominantly Bitcoin? Are you starting to see other altcoin kind of peak in there as well? What's it been like on the trading side for you folks?
Let me just take that first, and I'll just because I think it's important to talk about sort of how how things have sort of changed in terms of how people sort of deploy capital in this space, and how institutions kind of think about this space and how we help them think about this space. But we talk about sort of traditional asset managers and that sort of, and also the sort of crypto native asset managers. There are dedicated hedge funds, and let's just call them not even hedge funds, but alternative managers, who are, a fiduciary, and are deploying capital on behalf of clients in the space at the moment. So there are traditional hedge funds, household names that we're all very familiar with, and alternative managers. But in addition to that, I think there's a couple of points I just want to mention. First of all, that institutions have moved past this sort of binary kind of in or out kind of stage that I think sort of takes us back to the last time we were on the show. That was very much from the traditional world that I came from. It was just a sort of decision about being in or out. Once they made that decision to be in, then it was very much just sizing, or weighting basically your portfolio in the digital space in a way that you felt comfortable with. So it was kind of a buy and hold approach to digital assets, and there was a view that investment committees go around the table and said, okay, look, it's too much risk to be out of this market. Relative to the risk of being in it. So let's be in it, but let's size it accordingly. Maybe we'll put 1% of our assets in this space. So that's kind of where we were last year. And we've very much moved past that now. Certainly since I've been at BLOCKFI in the space of a very short time in the past few weeks, I've spoken to several sovereign wealth funds, pension funds who have beginning to go beyond the sort of buy and hold approach and are looking at sort of more fixed income like ways in which they can get their proxy exposure to this market. Do they, their entry points vary from, do I take a VC approach? Do I take a buy and hold approach? Do I hold my position in a derivative format? Do I look at things like the basis where I can give some sort of expected return, and a qualification around my risk management to my investment committee. So, that's sort of become a little bit more, a little bit more sophisticated beyond the sort of buy and hold. Where I think it becomes very interesting is I've talked to a number of auction houses, for example, that are beginning to take payment in, whether it's Bitcoin or other types of sort of digital assets used or pledged, as collateral against, for example, loans to buy pieces of art, within auctions. But auction houses themselves are looking at payments and software around payments and the ability to provide their clients the ability to basically purchase in different coins, for example. So that's, for me, I think it's a very important space because it shows the sort of practical use of basically digital assets. It provides real world examples of using things like Bitcoin to purchase a piece of art. And so I think more and more of those sort of real world examples, not just from high net worth individuals, but from institutions as well, I think is sort of an important evolution in the market. And so I just I just wanted to sort of highlight that point. I think Rob, I don't know if you want to talk about sort of some of the things that we see across the trading platform that you'd like to sort of highlight here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the one thing that I would add that you touch on is the changing appetites of some of the institutions that we're dealing with, and it was mentioned, the idea of alts, right? I think when I first joined BLOCKFI, the conversation was really solely focused on Bitcoin and Ethereum. Ethereum, if you were feeling a little bit crazy, right? And over the past 2 months, it's really shifted where a lot of these major institutions are looking at other assets that they can trade, right? And BlockFi's responded to that. We've listed things like Uniswap, Basic Attention Token, DAI, and we're going to continue to list additional ones on our platform to meet this growing demand. And I think the really interesting thing is some of the biggest institutions in the world are even taking it a step further, right? They're not just buying these assets in their portfolio, whether it's leveraging some of the index products out there to get exposure to DeFi or just buying them directly to a platform like BlockFi. They're even interacting with them in the DeFi ecosystem, which is a major development that we're starting to see with some of these institutions who were previously even before they were looking at some of the structured products or alternative ways to get invested or synthetic exposure to crypto. They were even just buying Bitcoin, deciding when they were going to get in and buy Bitcoin and hold it. And that was really the extent of their exposure to the space. So I think it's incredibly positive development overall that we've seen over the past year.
Yeah, that is fascinating because I know in Zach's early appearances, and in general, most of the early days, even of this show, people were coming on to talk about crypto lending. It was 99% of it was in the parlance of, I have Bitcoin assets. Can I use those as collateral to borrow against them? And that was pretty much the lion's share of the conversation. But now we're talking about so many other things, auction houses and different use cases and things. So it sounds like, Giles, the space, as you put it, has definitely evolved in the last couple of years on the lending side in particular.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, look, you hit the nail on the head. Like this, this market looks like a fully fledged asset class. There are derivatives, there's cash, there are different venues, a significant choice available to investors, to basically, intermediaries that they can actually invest through and get advice from. And there are just lots more sort of opportunities, to see sort of more traditional sort of ways in which capital is raised. I don't have to point out Coinbase was incredibly successful at raising capital. Every time those kind of milestones are broken, it just lends more sort of credibility and legitimacy to the space. And so it doesn't matter where you look, M&A is happening, debt capital markets are happening, equity capital markets are happening, lending is happening, trading is happening, custody is happening. These are all very, very sort of traditional kind of pillars of finance that everybody is very used to. But it's in the digital world. And so all of these things are much more efficient, much more accessible. That, the speed at which things are done is completely different to what people have been used to in the traditional markets. But the fundamentals are kind of still the same. People still need to raise capital. People still need to raise, capital to basically spend on building and innovating kind of within the space. But these markets are open and ready, and there are investors that are ready to deploy cash. And so, I think there's an awful lot of capital out there that is really ready to do a lot more than just buy and hold. Look, we're going through it's not even beyond an evolution. I would sort of describe it as almost like a revolution. I think we'll continue to see that accelerate. We've seen a little bit of consolidation obviously happen after just an absolutely tremendous year, but markets don't go in straight lines. I think the consolidation has been healthy. Even when we saw basically the incredible volatility in markets back in May and June, everything behaved, everything worked, nothing fell over. And so I think that just lends more sort of credibility and legitimacy. Look, from our perspective, we've built a business that certainly on the institutional side and on the retail side that starts with trust. And we want to be there for our clients. Our clients love us. If you go on Twitter, you can see that our retail clients they're not just clients, they're fans what we do. We'll continue to roll out products that our clients love. And we'll continue to provide the sort of transparency that they expect and are used to from us. And I think, look, we're well positioned. We've raised a lot of capital, and we'll continue to do well and look after our clients, our employees and our investors. We're certainly super optimistic about the business, certainly for the foreseeable future. And obviously we're excited and to be able to come and talk to people like yourself and tell our story. But we're here, Rob and I are here, and if people want to reach out to us and learn more about BLOCKFI, we'd love to talk to your listeners.
Well, I appreciate that. We do have to get rolling with the show, but we like to leave our audience wanting more here. So we talked about, some of the interesting things and the evolutions on the lending and indeed the trading side. You have a variety of different products out there like the BLOCKFI interest accounts and others, which have made some headlines out there of late. I encourage you listeners to check that out. But I'm curious from your perspective. Obviously, these are interesting times. There are some challenges, as we've seen now, with the BLOCKFI interest accounts getting some pushback from some different fragmented regulators out there. I believe it was in New Jersey in your case. But what can folks look forward to coming down the pike from you guys over there at BLOCKFI in the coming months?
Well, look, first thing I'm going to say is, as a firm, in terms of regulation, and in terms of policy, we want good policy, we want good regulation, and regulation that's designed, carefully thought about, and policy that's carefully thought about and implemented, that is in the best interest of our clients and our investors' employees. We are all for that. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. The second thing is, it's the space. It doesn't surprise me that it's coming under focus. I mean, we saw certainly this weekend, which probably put a little bit of a cap on the market, that, attached to the Senate infrastructure bill was a set of reporting requirements that, would if not adhered to, would produce really stiff penalties. And so I just think, look, this sector, it's coming under focus because it's growing and it's not a nascent market anymore. It's becoming an established market, and so it's going to get a lot of focus because it's substantial and important, and it should get focused. So that's the first thing I'm just going to say. And look, in terms of how we are going to sort of approach and continue to do business, as I said, we basically lead with our clients, and we'll continue to do so. And certainly as a firm, we welcome the opportunity to basically build the guardrails that everybody believes in and thinks are right for the business.
Sounds like a plan there. And if you want to leave our audience with any hints, any teases, maybe some new products, some new evolutions coming from BLOCKFI that they can look forward to, now is the time, gentlemen. The floor is yours.
You know what? The thing that I really want to talk about is we just launched a credit card, and it's a fantastic product. I encourage everybody to go and have a look at it. It's pioneering, and I'm sure that a lot of the incumbents wish they'd thought of or could do it. We've done it, and it's something we're very proud of. The demand for it and just the unboxing and the pictures that we've seen has just been absolutely amazing. I think, as I said, we're going to keep building products that look after our clients. We want to keep building products that help, our clients' balance sheet, whether it's on the institutional side or the retail side. That's our focus. As I said, we lead with that. And, it's exciting times. We can build things that people really enjoy, they love using, and we'll continue to do so.
I like that. That's part of your BLOCKFI billboards around the country. I'm seeing them pop up here or there for the credit card. And Giles, if folks want to go learn more about the credit card or anything else you have to offer over there in the land of BLOCKFI, where should they go? What should they do?
BLOCKFI.com. We've got it all there. We have a great website. That's probably the easiest way. Come and visit us. And, we have, once you're in the site, we have various ways that you can contact us, whether you're an institution or an individual. or a high net worth investor. But start there. It's got a lot of information, and we'd love to hear from people.
There you go. Check it out for yourselves. BlockFi, BLOCKFI.com is the place to go. And gentlemen, I'll look forward to checking in with you guys at BlockFi, hopefully more frequently than once every, let's say, year and a half.
Yeah, Mark, let's get on soon, all right? Really appreciate the time. Thanks for having us.
Well, we appreciate you joining us as we keep on rolling. It is time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we do exactly that. We break down the week that was and still is in the world's leading digital asset. Of course, we're talking about Bitcoin and, a whole heck of a lot of nothing net show to show here from an overall Bitcoin price perspective. We were at about a 39,300 and change on our last show. Coming into today's show, 39,739, so up a little over 400 handles from last week. Between shows, though, did get a little bit higher. We flirted ever so briefly north of the 40K level, got up to 42,000, almost 42,500. So a nice little resurgence there for the crypto bulls, given that back now, though, as we're coming into showtime, kind of in the middle of that range. It was as low as about almost a little bit shy of 37,000, 36,900 in between last show and now. Looking on the vol front, it's kind of a whole lot of shrugging of the shoulders. We were at about an 80% on the show last week. This show, coming into today's show, a whopping 81. By the way, all of these analytics coming at you courtesy of our friends over there at Genesis Volatility. GVol.io is the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. You can see all this stuff for yourselves, the SKEW, the OI, the volatility, all that good stuff, and a whole bunch more across a broad array of outlets, including Deribit, the big dog, and a bunch of others over there. GVol.io. GVol.io, the place to go. All right. BitVol, of course, that's our friend Simon Ho's Bitcoin VIX. A little bit more percolating in over there. Remember, that methodology is a little bit different than just straight looking at the kind of 1 hour kind of at the money aggregate volatility out there like they do in Genesis. BitVol is kind of more of a VIX measure, a little bit more of a 30-day methodology out there. And that on our last show is about an 84.5. Coming into today, it's actually ticking up about a 90.5. So a little bit more afoot out there in the land of BitVol. SKEW, same deal. The 1 hour 30-20 SKEW last show was kind of flat. It was about 0.5 in the positive direction. This show, coming in today's show, almost a 5, about a 4.8. So it has swung into positive territory since our last show. Interestingly enough, of course, since our last show, July has rolled off the board. Took a lot of contracts with it. Over 37,000 were open in July. As of our last show, I'm sure more were added in since then. But coming into today's show, from an OI perspective, the call open interest in Bitcoin is almost exactly unchanged from this time last week. That very rarely happens, as you might imagine. It was 87,500 on our last show, 87,600. This up a whopping 100 from our last show. So that's pretty much as close to unched as you're going to get out there in Bitcoin options. Puts, a little bit different story. There were 56,000 contracts open last week, 46,000 this week, so down about 10,000 almost exactly. Again, a lot of that coming off the board with July. Speaking of July, let's look at where the months are lining up right now. The most active month right now in Bitcoin options is December, with 41,500 contracts open. It's up nearly 4,000 from last week, followed by September. So we're doing the quarterly dance again, 36,500 there. Oh, that's up about 4,500 from last week. And then Aug bring up the rear with about 19,000. That will, of course, grow as folks want to pile in, get some more near dated paper than what they can get in December or even September. In terms of the notional open interest, the value of how much OI is actually outstanding on the options front is pretty much unched from last week. It was about $5 billion on Deribit last week. It's about $5 billion this week. It's not a heck of a lot of evolution out there. We did see some action from an overall trading volume perspective. And that was pretty much all during our show last week. Remember I said on the show last week, there was about already 800 some odd million worth of notional had changed hands already. It turned out it topped out at about $1 billion on the show last week. So that was the busiest day we've seen in Bitcoin options in quite some time. We haven't seen a 1 billion day out there in a long time. I think to go back to April or May to really find a 1 billion day. So it's nice to see some numbers creeping back in there. Even if it was short-lived, the rest of the week was decidedly less, but still nice spark of life as Bitcoin showed some sparks of life early last week as well. In terms of where the OI is shaken up from an options perspective, which strikes you folks are lining up on right now, it's the 50K strike. That's the big dog out there with about 10,000 contracts open on that strike. It's up nearly 2,000, about 1,700 from last week, followed by the 20,000 strike. Number 2 at 8,000. It's down actually 1,000 from last week. Number 3, the 40,000 strike, 7,700. That's up 1,700 from last week. Number 4, the very optimistic 100,000 strike with about 6,600 contracts. That's actually down about 1,200 from last week. And number 5 is the 60,000 strike. It's almost neck and neck with the par strike. That has 6,600 contracts open as well. That's down a few hundred. There are only a few contracts difference between those two strikes. So interesting stuff afoot out there. Also a little bit of interest out there on the CME front from a Bitcoin options perspective. On July 26th, so our show day last week, that was the busiest day they've had in quite some time. 174 contracts going up out there. Doesn't sound like a lot, but then again, it's a 5X contract. So a lot of juice in them there hills. On the futures front, same deal. July 26th, the busiest day we've had out there in a little while, with about 23,000 contracts. If you're wondering, the futures OI is at about 7,300 out there. On the CME front, as we keep on rolling, it is time to explore the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's break down the top 10 here in the world of crypto first. Let's start with Uniswap number 10, 13 and about $500 million worth of market cap. Again, take the market caps with a bit of a grain of salt. Number 9, Polkadot, 18.2 billion. Number 8, it's Doge with about 26.8 billion. Number 7, USD Coin, 27.5 billion. Number 6, XRP, 34.7 billion. Number 5, Cardano, 42.75 billion. Number 4, Binance Coin, 56.4 billion. Number 3, it's Tether, 61, almost 62 billion. Numero dos here, it's ETH, 310 billion. And the big dog looking a little bit bigger this week with Bitcoin at about $750 billion worth of market cap out there. In terms of ETH, let's go out there to the number 2 contract you folks like to trade out there. ETH on our last show was at about 23.66 this week, 26.52. So up not quite 300, but pretty close, about 285 handles from last week. The high in between our shows was on Sunday, almost 2,700, 26.98. And it dipped down as low as about 21.82 after our show last week on Tuesday. So interesting range out there in ETH these days. Vol-wise, though, we're seeing a bit of a similar story, a little bit higher than Bitcoin, but not a heck of a lot going on the movement front. Last week, it was 98%. This week, a whopping 99%. So still frothy, still elevated, but not really changing a lot week on week. 30-20 SKEW last week was firmly in the negative territories, nearly a -3, about a -2.86. Coming into today's show, has swung in the other direction. It's a +7 coming into the start of today's show. In terms of notional volume out there, actually saw a little bit of action over the course of the last week. It wasn't on the 26th, though. It was actually on the 30th, on Friday, the busiest day with about 351 million worth of notional changing hands out there in ETH on there. But that isn't a ton, but given the paucity of paper that's been going on out there over the course of the last few months, that actually is a decent amount. So we'll take it out there. In terms of OI, what's going on from an ETH options open interest perspective, calls last week, remember, July rolling off the board here for ETH as well. Calls, 684,000 contracts on the tape, just down nearly 60,000 from last week. And it's actually 58,000, which is the exact same amount that it was up last week. It was up 58,000 last week. This week, it is down 58,000. So we're net unched after a couple of weeks. Puts 403,000 open, down 31,000 from last week. In terms of the notional value of that OI, though, it's still kind of hovering around, given the fact that we have rallied a little bit. It's making up for some of that OI going away. But we're still at right around 3 billion over there on Deribit. In terms of the months where you folks are lining up from a monthly expiration perspective, remember, July rolling off the board took nearly 300,000 contracts with it. That's a lot. That's a lot in ETH land. Number one now is DEES with 362,000 contracts. It's up about 27,000 from last week. Followed by number two, SEP, 260,000. Open, that's up 14,000 from last week. And then AUG sneaking in at number three with a paltry 133,000. I do expect that to grow before expiration, obviously. In terms of strikes, where you folks are lining up out there in ETH land right now, the 5,000 strike, still the number one in terms of the largest sizable positions open out there. On the 5,000 strike, that's 60,000 contracts open on the 5,000 strike. That's actually down about almost 6,000 from last week, about 5,700. Followed by number two, the 1,600 strike with about 46,800. That's pretty much unchanged from last week, as is number three, the 480 strike. Those are still open to the tune of 46,000. That doesn't sound like they're going away anytime soon, but we could safely say they weren't July because they are still there. Number four, 3,000 strike, 40,400 of those. That's down about 1,100 from last week. And rounding out the top five this week, the 3,200 strike with about 34,200 contracts open there. Let's go on out to the CME front. ETH OI is about 34.89 on the ETH futures. They actually had some decent days last week. The 28th was the most active day on CME, which is interesting, with about 7,000 contracts going up on that day. Let's round it out here, looking at some of the other names you folks like to trade out there. Let's get on out to Ripple. Nice little week here for Ripple, up nearly 9 cents from our last show, as well as Bitcoin Cash up about 44, almost 45 handles from last week. And Bitcoin SV up about 9 1/3. And of course, we can't roll out of here without giving you your update on Doge, actually down about 1.6 cents from last week. All right, everybody, that music means we've come to the end of another fun sojourn through the world of crypto. I want to thank our guests, Giles and Rob from BLOCKFI. You know where to go to learn more about the credit card, the BLOCKFI interest accounts, and everything else going on out there. BlockFi.com is the place to go to learn more. And of course, you know where to go to learn more about the analytics we talked about on the show. Genesis Volatility, aka gvol.io, is the place to go to learn more about that. On behalf of our guests and everybody over there at Genesis, and indeed myself, thank all of you out there for downloading, streaming, and subscribing. And of course, keep those questions and comments coming. Do love to hear from all of you folks out there. Remember, if you like what you hear, keep rating and reviewing on your platform of choice. It does help the new folks discover the program. And we'll see you back here next week, another episode of the Crypto Rundown.
This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVol, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVol Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.